This government spokesperson says President Mahama will not scrap the office of the special prosecutor as pressure continues to mount on him. The latest as well coming from the Interior Ministry is that they will be investigating allegations of assassination against the person of Kisi Ejabeng.
Also to come, former Bufferstock CEO Abdul Hanan seeks High Court ruling to unfreeze his properties.
A lot later, whereabouts of Benin school leader, rather, I should say, fate unknown as hostages continue to remain unseen after the failed coup attempt.
Welcome to a brand new week of News Central. I'm Kemini Amanor.
And I am Mawuena Egbeta. The bulletin starts right now.
Now, this afternoon, the Interior Minister Muntaka Mubarak has ordered immediate investigations into claims of assassination attempts against the life of the Special Prosecutor Kisi Ejabeng in the discharge of his duties. Director of Strategy, Research and Communications at the Office of the Special Prosecutor Sami Dako over the weekend mentioned the attempt on the life of the SP while also claiming he had been handcuffed and beaten by 17 police personnel. According to a statement issued by the Interior Minister, such dangers to personnel of accountability institutions, if true, can undermine the government's efforts to combat corruption, which has intensified since it took office. The ministry has therefore taken up the matter with seriousness it deserves. Here are some preliminary findings on the alleged assassination. We can take you through that. Mawuena, what are we learning from the Interior Minister in whole?
And we understand that since the claims were made from the weekend, contacts have been made with the person of the Special Prosecutor Kisi Ejabeng. And this is what the Interior Minister or Ministry is telling us, that initial contact with Mr. Kisi Ejabeng have revealed that the assassination attempt on him, as claimed, happened before this year, which presupposes it wasn't the NDC administration which was then in power when these attempts were made on the life of the Special Prosecutor Kisi Ejabeng. There is no record or report of such threats against his life at any police station or at any of the state security agencies in the country, which is quite puzzling, considering that attempts were made on his life. And until this weekend, there was no
knowledge of it.
No knowledge. And in fact, not reported at any police station or any of the state security agencies as well is important and worthy of taking note. Now, the ministry, we understand, has further, or the minister has further directed a number of actions to be taken. That since crime does not expire, they ordered a full-scale investigation into the claim of assassination attempt. The ministry has also ordered an investigation into the claim by Mr. Sami Dako that he was handcuffed and beaten by 17 police personnel. And the ministry says that they will update the public on the outcome of these investigations and the actions to be taken. The Ministry of Interior reiterates its commitment to protecting all lives and properties to ensure that all Ghanaians can conduct all their lawful affairs without any fear for their safety. And that's the latest. That's just coming through from the Interior Minister and the ministry. And again, worthy of note, these aspects of the release by the Interior Minister, that the contacts made suggest that these attempts were made on his life before this
he
year.
took office.
There is no record or report of such threats against his life at any police station or at any of the state security agencies in the country. And where is the Interior Ministry getting all of this from? Contact with Mr. Kissie Jabing is where they are getting all of this from, and say they are going to investigate not just this, the attempt on his life, but the claim as well by Mr. Samedako that he was handcuffed and beaten by 17 police personnel.
I mean, and then it also begs the question, why was this not reported? Why was it never made known during that period when this happened? Because being handcuffed and beaten by 17 police personnel is no small, business.
Absolutely.
Right.
And what was the basis as well for his handcuff and the assault on him by 17 police personnel? And the number is well rounded, 17. What was the justification, the cause of action, reason for which 17 police personnel handcuffed him and assaulted him? We don't understand from this whether or not that as well was reported to the police or any of the state security agencies. That's not quite clear from this as well.
Absolutely.
But the ministry says all of that is to be investigated and the public updated in a short while.
Indeed, which makes this investigation very important.
Absolutely.
Because this is the office of the special prosecutor. It's a high office, an ombudsman of corruption. So it's important that we get to the bottom of this, not only to protect Kissie Jabing, but whoever occupies that office well in the future. But we'll stay on this subject because government spokesperson says President Mahama does not intend scrapping the office of the special prosecutor. We can take a listen to the Minister for Government Communications, Felix Kwatiofusu.
Has abused his powers in this matter. And I will not hesitate to say that this house, we created the office. And the office of the special prosecutor, if he continues to abuse his powers, then we may have to abrogate it. We shall be inviting him to come and brief the House the circumstances under which he will detain a citizen under such whimsical circumstances.
Mr. Speaker, the office has been in existence for how many years now? Close to 8 years. Tell me what is really the achievement of that office. I believe that it is high time that this Parliament reconsiders its decision to approve the establishment of the Office of Special Prosecutor. I think that we should abolish it.
Unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, like we say in Twi, etua onyonku mua, etua duem, etua uhumudia, etua nipem. To wit, Mr. Speaker, when it happens to somebody and he's complaining about it, you see absolutely nothing wrong with it. When it happens to you, now you complain. So, Mr. Speaker, if he wants to invite the special prosecutor to come and answer why his friend, and today he's complaining because it is his friend, but perhaps our advice will be that all the other investigative bodies that are being weaponized, which have been complained about, which they turn a blind eye and a blind ear to, maybe, Chief Whip, you should add it.
And if you recall, during the deliberation on the OSP, a number of us stated on the floor of this House that there's no constitutional basis. We cannot continue to allocate that huge sums to the same office when we are not getting the results. This is one of the agencies we should be looking at.
Let me say that, again, Ghanaians are free to run commentary on public office holders and what they perceive to be their outputs. So if someone is of the view that a similar treatment ought to be meted out to the office of the special prosecutor, they are entitled to hold such a view.
But as a
government, as far as I sit here, the one who will call such a shot will be the president himself, because the OSP's office was created by law. So I'm sure a process to reverse him should not be difficult to identify. But as I sit here, let me indicate and state for the avoidance of doubt that I have had no indication or communication from the president. But I'm saying that in terms of the right of those individuals to express their views about the OSP and the functional necessity of that office. They are entitled to those views. The OSP was set up by law. So any move to the contract would have to go through due process and law.
That's Felix Kwachio-Fosu, Minister for Government Communication. Let's speak to the majority chief whip, Roxanne Nelson Dafiamekpo, who's also a private legal practitioner as well. Mr. Nelson, I appreciate you speaking to us this afternoon. There's a position of government, which has just been espoused by Felix, that there's no intention whatsoever by President Mahama to have the office of the special prosecutor scrapped. Yet you in Parliament, and when I say Parliament, I mean the majority of you who are NDC MPs are arguing a possible scrapping of the office. Your position and that of government not in tandem. How do you reconcile this?
I think the question you should ask is, why is Parliament interested in looking into the circumstances under which the rights of citizens are abused by the Office of the Special Prosecutor and the litany of allegations against the OSP and its operatives? And that if we get to a stage where we have to abrogate or abolish the office by way of statute, a lot of members of Parliament, including members from the other side, were in support. I think that is the question you should ask. Nobody is in competition with government over this matter. The call to abolish the office or otherwise is emanating purely from Parliament. This has nothing to do with government. It is Parliament that is making this call, supported by no mean a person than the Speaker of the House. So these are very serious, but these are very formidable issues that Parliament is raising. So don't knock the head of Parliament and the executive together in this matter. It is Parliament that is making the call. The issue we should interrogate is whether or not the call is in order.
Which we will get into right now, because the basis for the call by the legislature and its members is that the office has not lived up to expectation.
Of course. We have just approved over 250 million Ghana cedis for the work of the OSP for its activities in 2026. And members are asking that the OSP has essentially not delivered on its mandate. The budget that OSP has been given is similar to the budget given the Office of the Attorney General and Minister of Justice. And the Attorney General and the Minister of Justice has offices in every regional capital in this country. They have state attorneys dotted in every regional capital in this country. The OSP operates from only Accra. So these are the real issues that Parliament is considering. That it appears that we are putting a lot of resources into the activities of the OSP, and we are not getting the requisite output from the office, from the operations of the office. And if that is the case, then it appears that the office is not serving its purpose.
Comments like these.
Hold on. And therefore, it is Parliament that set the office up. And so Parliament can decide that we can then abolish it.
There are colleague former members of Parliament who make the argument that, look, comments like these only serve in detracting in the fight against corruption. What the office needs is the support of Ghanaians and the support of the legislature in being able to deal with corruption. In fact, the office is of the opinion that, look, they are fighting corruption and they've touched one of the political elites. That's why this uproar and all of these calls are coming up, because the system is set up such that when you go after the juggernauts, the big individuals, then you're stoking the flames and calls like these will come up.
It is absolutely not founded. The office is set up to investigate corruptions amongst politically exposed persons, public office holders, as well as private persons. So the mandate of the OSP to look into corruption and corruption-related matters is not only limited to politicians. So that argument will hold water. Number two, That is not the government of the case. The government of the case of Parliament is that the OSP for the past 7 or 8 years hasn't delivered on its mandate. And yet, millions and millions and millions of Ghana cedis has been pumped into its operations.
When you say delivered on its mandates, that's subjective, because the office says they've undertaken investigations which has prevented instances of corruption. In the SML case, for instance, they continue to defend the fact that their investigations has led to the blocking of some $2 billion in excess to be paid to SML. They've had convictions in some parts where people have paid back monies to the state, amongst many other things. And there are high-profile cases which are being investigated. Surely, you know the criminal justice system of this country takes a while. And so you should afford them some breathing space and give them the support to nail these persons.
Is the OSP saying that they are unable to prosecute cases for which they have conducted investigations? Is that what they are saying? Vis-a-vis the amount of resources we are pumping into the Office of the Attorney General and the number of prosecutions we get from the Office of the Attorney General. You see, we are not saying that prosecute people and willy-nilly jail them. That's not the issue. But when you have conducted investigations, people want to see prosecution and let people defend themselves before the law courts. Let evidence be led and recanted. For instance, the OSP will commence investigations, and midway, the OSP says that they no longer are interested, and so they are offloading the matter to another investigative body. These are the issues that Parliament is raising. And recently, it's about abuse of the powers of the OSP. When lawyers are invited willingly to the office of the OSP, the rights of those lawyers get abused. These are the real issues. These are the issues.
Right.
So Parliament is not making this call whimsically. Parliament is standing on a certain terra firma.
Right.
To make this call.
Right. I just want to pick your thoughts on the latest that came from the weekend as well over claims of assassination against the life of the OSP. Does Parliament, or is Parliament minded by these revelations even as you proceed to make the calls, because these are lives that are involved, and I'm sure it will be of interest to Parliament that all individuals are protected by the state?
By all means, so I'm not hearing of the matter. I've just spotted the statement issued. If there's any evidence about any persons or group of miscreants who have attempted to harm the special prosecutor, by all means, let the matter be looked into. But look, the OSP is a very well protected office, and its staffers. The OSP drives in a bulletproof vehicle. So he's a very well secured and protected public officer. So if there is any such attempt, by all means, we encourage the authorities to look into it.
Right.
And the life of every citizen, public or private, in this republic matters.
Right.
Everybody deserves to be protected.
Right. Finally, from me, these conversations about the scrapping of the office, what would you say? It's just its formative days, or this is something that you're seeking to come up with a private member's bill to push to in say, early part of next year? Other timelines to these conversations within the walls of Parliament?
This is a matter that I initiated in Parliament, supported by the majority leader, supported by a lot of MPs on the other side, and eventually also pronounced upon by the Speaker himself. So these are very, very weighty matters. So we are not making these issues whimsically. We intend to come by a private members bill to deal with the issues, and nobody should underrate the power of Parliament to do so.
Right, then, Honourable, I appreciate you speaking to us this afternoon. That's Roxanne Nelson Dafiamekbo. He is the majority chief whip speaking to us this afternoon on the office of the special prosecutor and what is Parliament's move to have it scrapped following a dissatisfaction with the work put in since its formation some 7 years ago. We'll bring you some other stories right now.
In other news this afternoon, former President John Kufuor has opened up about the performance of the NPP in the 2024 general election, speaking to Dolores Frimpong Manson on Delay Show. The former president said he never understood the rationale behind the domestic debt exchange and the National Cathedral project. Take a listen.
At the beginning, it was going well until COVID came. I would say Kufuor managed the COVID-19 pandemic well, for what I saw.
Okay.
However, after that came a few things that I didn't understand. For instance, the bond market issues, the National Cathedral and the PDS scandals. There were things I just did not understand. It was all very confusing.
Okay.
This is what surprised me. When you look back at 2016, we won the elections by a landslide. But during the 2020 elections, happenings in the country and a few tensions here and there.
NDC battery, it took just one vote, one seat in Parliament to distinguish President when a majority, but now a reduced majority.
Even though the presidential election was different. Then 4 years later, elections came. Then 4 years later, elections turned the other way. It tells you that you cannot take electorates for granted.
From 92 on, can say that we are in a party doesn't mean we are friends.
He said that we are in a party doesn't mean we are friends. I may not like you, you may not like me, but because of the party's principles, democracy, rule of law, respect for privacy and others, all of us are in it. So even if we're not friends, we must work together for the sake of the principles of the party. We should be united and Ghanaians will appreciate it.
Principles, some Ghana for any.
With less than 2 months for the NPP to go to the polls to elect its 2028 presidential candidate, former Vice President Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia remains the most preferred among his contenders. According to the latest polls by Global Info Analytics, Dr. Bawumia had a 91% favorability rate in the latest period of the survey. And with the election getting closer, his favorability has gone up by 1% to 92%, a situation he described as positive. Meanwhile, members of the governing NDC prefer and are rooting for Kennedy Ohene Ejapong to be elected flag bearer of the opposition NPP instead of the Vice President, Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia. Well, in a bit, we should have a chat with the author of the latest poll, Musa Dankwa of Global Info Analytics. Remember that there are 5 gentlemen in that presidential primary of the NPP scheduled for January 2026. We know there is the former Vice President, Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia. There is also Kennedy Ohene Ejapong. There is also Kwabena Ejapong, former General Secretary of the party, former Agric Minister and National Security Coordinator, Dr. Brian Echampong, former Education Minister, Dr. Yao Educhum. Now, these 5 men will be headed for the polls come January 2026 to lead the party into the 2028 elections. After that presidential primary, there will be the elections for national executives of the party as well. We'll have a conversation on the back of how the race is shaping up with less than 2 months to go. In the meantime, let's take a quick break. We'll be right back with more news. Don't go away.
Why are more and more professionals choosing flamingo paint?
As an interior decorator, I aim for the beautiful, elegant look. Flamingo paint has great hiding ability to cover and transform old walls easily with just one coat.
Impressive. For me, as a professional painter, I love flamingo paints because with just small paints, I paint huge area, meaning more profit for me. Great value for money.
As an architect, Flamingo Paint, with its well-researched and solid composition, guarantees durability for all my buildings.
on the NPP of January 2026. Pollster Musa Dankwa of Global Info Analytics tells us that per his latest poll, Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia is the most favored candidate in that race. Let's have a quick chat with Musa Dankwa. Musa, thank you so much for joining us here this afternoon. But how did your survey arrive at that conclusion?
Right, thank you very much. I think what you are looking at is the most recent poll of MPP delegates that we sampled across 267 constituencies. We put them a simple question, which includes, if the elections were held today, who would you vote for? And from that survey, it is clear that Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia is leading the pack with about 43%. You have Kennedy on 18%, Brian on 5%, and then the rest are near zero. But 15% of the delegates did not disclose their voting intention, while 19% said they were undecided.
I see. And what's the margin of error on that?
Margin of error is about 2.4%, or I think 2.14%.
I see.
With
So
a confidence level of 99%.
Confidence level of 99%, which means that come January 2026, by the end of the primary, the results are likely to follow this trend?
We have 2 more surveys to conduct before the primaries. What we are saying is that if the elections were held by the time we interviewed them, barring any significant movement in the numbers, we would expect probably Bawumia to win one touch.
I see. This survey also shows that the responders who identified as NDC prefer Kennedy or Hine Japon. What is the explanation for that?
So that was a separate survey, which is part of the current ongoing tracking poll. We just released the first element, which was done online, to see what people in social media are thinking, or who do they prefer. And that data showed that, yes, even though about 75% of MPP voters prefer Bawumia, when you come to the NDC voters and the floating voters, the story is different. Now, currently, NDC people preferring Bawumia is 33%, but NDC people preferring Kennedy is 39%. In the past, Bawumia used to be the favorite for the NDC. So this time around, we've seen a shift towards Kennedy. But when you look at the floating voters, the same way, the floating voters, 32% support Bawumia and 38% support Kennedy Ejapon.
I see. We'll leave it here, Musa. Thank you so much for talking to us. Musa Dankwa is Executive Director for Global Info Analytics. Next, we'll bring you by the numbers.
Well, this afternoon on By the Numbers, a recent coup attempt in Benin has reignited quite the conversation and concern over the stability of West Africa and the future of ECOWAS, a regional bloc now struggling to contain a rising tide of military takeovers. Over the past decade, almost 60% of all coup attempts the world over have occurred in West Africa, turning the region into the center of global democratic setbacks. Now, tensions deepened after Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger announced their withdrawal and formation of the Sahel Alliance. This was followed by the suspension of Guinea, reducing the once 15-member ECOWAS community to about 11 active members and raising urgent questions about the bloc's strength and long-term viability. The failed attempt in Benin, a country long regarded as one of the most stable in terms of democracies in the Gulf, has heightened fears that the wave of coups is spreading towards coastal states with regional security under pressure, public confidence weakening, and international influence shifting. Let's take you to the dashboard quickly as to an understanding of what really is playing out within the West African sub-region and On the base, we know that there is that Afrobarometer report which has suggested that a lot of young people back military takeovers within the African continent or on the African continent. Is that the justification which is allowing these military personnel do what it is that they are doing? Well, we'll seek to find out as we walk you through what the data suggests. And so 20 attempts in terms of military takeovers the world over, and out of that, 11 successful, right? 11 successful. We'll get into the details in terms of what the comparisons are with the rest of the world. But in the West African sub-region alone, 20, with just this weekends as well being a part of it. Now, this is what it looks like in terms of the numbers as to the countries who have had the most attempts and the successes as well. Mali and Burkina Faso obviously lead the way. Then there is Niger, there is Guinea-Bissau, and then Benin, which we saw. The first three are a part of the Sahel countries, the countries who've broken off ECOWAS and have formed that new alliance that we're seeing. But let's look at West Africa versus the rest of the world, right? And so over the last decade, 60% of all military takeovers or attempt or whatever you want to call it has been happening in the West African sub-region. Definitely a cause for concern as to what it is that we're seeing play out, while the rest of the world, Africa inclusive, the rest of the African continent inclusive as well, as the rest of the world, are taking just 40%. And so most definitely it presupposes challenges with democratic dispensation within the West African sub-region. And let's try and get you a bit more in terms of the understanding. This is what the ECOWAS bloc looks like, right? Let me just take you back quickly. This is what the ECOWAS bloc looks like. The countries with the red is the alliance of the Sahelian countries. Guinea is no longer a part of ECOWAS, but they haven't joined this group or this movement just as yet. But Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, they withdrew and created a separate alliance, the Sahel Alliance. Guinea was suspended following its 2021 coup, and so they've not been strategically a part of ECOWAS. Now from 15 member states, we're down to 11. And remember, there's a lot of talk about what it is that can happen with ECOWAS. There's been conversations which have been mooted about a single-use currency for a very long time, the ECO. You may have read or heard about it in basic school, up through SHS and all of that. All of that has not materialized, but the member states and the numbers have shrunk since then, from 15 to 11. And what are we seeing as some of the suggested reasons why we're seeing the coups happen in the manner and the fashion that we've seen? The first is the rapid expansion of jihadist insurgencies. In fact, off the top of my head alone, we know that for Burkina Faso, that is one of the major reasons why we saw a double coup in the country just some time back. There's growing public distrust in terms of the political elite, poverty, food insecurity, and unemployment as well, foreign influence and interference. And that's been a huge subject matter in terms of even the conversations from this weekend when the president of France, Emmanuel Macron, put up a post on Twitter as well as to having communications with Nigerian President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, which subsequently saw the airstrikes as well from the Nigerian army. And then the rising anti-colonial sentiment. And so these two, the last 2 points, closely linked as to why we're seeing the takeovers by the military in the fashion and the manner in which we've seen them play out. But we've been seeking to get a bit more as well from Mutar Mumuni Mutar, who is the founder and executive director of the West African Center for Counter-Extremism. And he's joining us right now in terms of a bit more on what it is that we've walked you through this data set and get a bit more. Mukhtar, I appreciate you joining us. Why has West Africa now become the region with the highest number of coup attempts globally?
Yes, can you hear me clearly?
Yes, I can.
Surely. What we are looking at is a very, very worrying situation of insecurity that has engulfed the entire West African space. And those who have been following developments in the region will not find this strange or surprising at all. Of course, as I was saying, I was stating earlier this morning, the coup situation in Benin may have occurred to many as quite a surprise because some of the factors that characterize the coup situations in the other previous 3-4 countries did not appear to feature the same way in Benin. But generally, we're looking at a region that has been dealing with pervasive situations of dysfunctional state institutions and pervasive corruption and a growing, Thai government sentiment, growing dissatisfaction with state capacity to provide what I often call the entitlements of citizenship that allow young people in particular to be able to realize their dreams or pursue their ambitions as they see elsewhere. The last decade in particular has been quite defining in terms of the fact that we have seen rising tide of corruption, rising tides of, the tide of insecurity and coup situations that have happened. And we have also seen the reality of, technology and cyberspace that allow young people from this part of the world to see exactly what is happening in other parts of the world. They're seeing young people enjoy life in London, in Paris, they are seeing life happening in New York, and they want the same thing for themselves here. Fortunately, their governments are not structured in a way that allows them to realize the same goals or dreams. And that creates fatigue, that creates frustration, that creates desperation. So we are going to see these things, happen in different ways until we are able to summon a new spirit and a new approach to development that elicits goodwill and support from the mass, populations of young people who are seeking to get things done, in a more satisfactory manner.
Let me ask this question because of time. From the data sets that I walked through, and even from the evidence on the ground, French-speaking West Africa has accounted for quite the number of military takeovers. This brings into question influence of foreign powers, what have you, and whether or not this is beginning to have a toll or a role to play in terms of the military deciding to want to take over. That has been lingering in the background for quite a while. Address that for me, and also bring in what ECOWAS can do to help in beginning to stem this tide, because the occasional statements come up every now and then, but it does appear that's not doing enough.
Well, in West Africa, the pervasive anti-French sentiments among young people, it's not new. But we have seen it expand and even sometimes exaggerated because of the background within these countries. That strong and growing anti-French sentiment seem to characterize the political developments and trajectory of security in these countries. While many young people feel frustrated and often reference France's own colonial or post-colonial and economic policies with French West African nations. The average West African young person from French-speaking countries feel that their countries are the way they are because of France. The average West African young person in French West Africa feels that the problem of these countries is France, and that the solution in their countries is also France. And so it clearly shows the inherent role France is perceived or believed to be playing in these countries. And until that is fixed, we are going to see significant and complex levels of engagement and appreciation of what the issues are in French West African countries. We are seeing today, in the case of Benin, for me, it's quite, commendable in terms of ECOWAS's role in successfully thwarting the coup that appeared to have emerged in Benin. And I think that we need to applaud ECOWAS for doing that. And they have done that in a very timely manner, without the loss of lives, at least at the moment, as we are being told. I think this is something we all have been calling for. Building a regional bloc, a regional organization with a capacity and initiative, proactive in nature, to be able to take control fully of regional security. And Nigeria has commendably played a role that all of us need to applaud.
Right then. Mukhtar, I appreciate you speaking to us. That's all time will allow us. That's Mukhtar Mamuni Mukhtar, bringing us to the end of By the Numbers.
In other news, the youth constitutes a critical voice in the fight against corruption. In the lead up to the International Anti-Corruption Stakeholders Conference, in the lead up to the International Anti-Corruption, stakeholders are making a compelling case to unite the youth for ethics and integrity in both public and private service. To reflect on this critical issue is Mary Ada. She is the Executive Director of the Ghana Integrity Initiative. What are we doing? That's all. Well, let's try Mary Ada now. Mary Ada, thank you so much for joining us here. Madam, why does it matter to the United Nations that we unite the youth against corruption?
Great. So it is very important. Good afternoon, and good afternoon to your cherished viewers. This is a very strategic population. And if you look at what we have in Ghana, the youth comprises over 50% of the population, and that is same across the world. We have also spoken to the fact that the youth represents the future. And for that matter, if anti-corruption efforts have not yielded the needed results, then it means we need to be careful to strategically then identify the group of persons who would be the future leaders to engage and then work with advocates to ensure that we have the results we need and the serious strategies that they would pick up to ensure the fight against corruption in the future is even more robust, is more effective, and engenders the results we all want. And so this year, that is why the National Anti-Corruption Day is looking at engaging the youth in this fight to ensure that they take over as the population we are talking about, inviting or uniting with the youth against corruption, shaping tomorrow's integrity. Certainly, there is no doubt whatsoever about that. So for us in Ghana, all the anti-corruption institutions, state, private sector, and also civil society are joining forces to commemorate this day. So we've lined up activities including private sector or Private Enterprises Federation having a meeting on the focusing on the private sector tomorrow, and then on Wednesday we all converge at the UPSC to do a commemoration of the day. Also linking it with the ethics of our time. Today we are talking about ethics and integrity. We must go back to that discussion and capture it very well. So if we have the youth in-house, who are persons we need to work with, then we are bringing on board the youth to hold the effort and speak with us, then discuss the issues around ethics, and then we embed the subject of the Kufuor bill within this space. What do the youth of Ghana think is the way forward? How would they shape and embed ethics in our Kufuor, which is the Conduct of Public Officers Bill, which I believe the General recently held a meeting on. So it's a week that is celebrating, commemorating, but also bringing on board the future leaders and the generations which are going to be taking over to ensure that we re-engage and reimagine corruption from their lenses.
Very well, we'll leave it here. Thank you so much for talking to us. Mariada is Executive Director of the Ghana Integrity Initiative. You're watching News Central. We'll take another break. We'll be right back. Don't go away.
TV show.
And the Vice President, Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman, made her mark as the reviewing officer for the ceremonial change of guards at the Jubilee House. This marks a significant milestone in her tenure as Ghana's first female Vice President. The change of guards ceremony, held every 3 months at the Jubilee House, symbolizes the transfer of responsibility for security at the presidency. The event saw the outgoing guard handed over to a new contingent from the Ghana Armed Forces. The colorful ceremony showcased the military's discipline and professionalism. The event highlighted Vice President Opoku Agyeman's commitment to promoting Ghana's military heritage and national security. As chairperson of the Armed Forces Council, she plays a crucial role in advising the president on defense policy and overseeing the military's organization. This came to you from our studios here on the John Hammond Street. I am Mawuena Egbeta.
And I am Kemini Amanor. We are back same time tomorrow here on News Central. Bye-bye.